Hi guys, welcome to the show. My name is Seb Ostrovich, aka the Voice of the People, and this is the Weightlifting House podcast. Welcome back to the Weightlifting House news show. Now, once again, I've completely underestimated just how long it takes to do a news show when there's been a big competition on. Normally I can get, the weightlifting news all put together in the same place, recorded in, 3 or 4 hours. But when there's been a big competition, as there has been over the last week with the Commonwealth Games, I forgot this thing takes ages. It takes me probably about, 8 or 9 hours to do the whole thing, just because I got to make sure I understand everything that's been going on and catch up on competitions, or not competitions, sessions that I didn't see. So I'm sat here, it's almost 7 p.m, I'm drinking coffee because I still haven't been able to train yet. I've got to go basically max out this evening. I've got a competition on Saturday, so this will be the kind of like the final heavy session. I'm not really tapering for it, it's nothing huge. I want to turn up, I want to do well. I would really love to medal or win depending on who's going to be there, but as it stands, 7 p.m, drinking coffee, still haven't recorded the news show, and I've got to train, so it's a little bit similar to last week, but hopefully next week I'll get somewhat of a break, because as far as I know at least, there are no major competitions on, but we'll see. So on Sunday, 4 days ago, I recorded a podcast with Glenn and also Donnie Shankle, so that's going to come out. I don't know if I'll put it out next week, maybe the week after. And then yesterday I recorded one with the one and only Sean Waxman, which turned out to be, in terms of the interviews that I've done, possibly the best interview I've done. I mean, completely fascinating guy, completely willing to get into the nooks and crannies of programming and training. It was just a fantastic podcast. It was one of the ones where, I was so deeply engrossed in the conversation that when it was over, I felt enlightened. I felt inspired to just try and do more for the sport of weightlifting. That's what this all is about. But Sean is a guy who's completely doing that, and I am so incredibly pumped to get that podcast out for you guys to listen to. Lastly, before we start, I put a picture up on Instagram about 5 minutes ago of the end caps to the Weightlifting House bars, the house barbell, the first barbell that I've ever brought out. I am so damn excited for these bars. So now people can start seeing the end caps. They're basically, I've been saying this for a while now, but they are being shipped to me here in the UK and also to the USA to be distributed there as well. So like I've said before, I'm going to put up a pre-order link that's going to get you 10% off, and that will probably be up in a few days for the next few weeks. I'm still waiting on perfect pictures before I can do that. Once that 2-week period is over, they will go back to full price, which, to be honest, is still a steal for the quality of, the steel and then the 5 needle bearings and everything. It's still incredibly well priced, but like I've said to a few people, I'm just trying to prove that you can do a good bar without having to charge just ridiculous prices that have always held me back as a poor, impoverished student over the last however many years that's been. So that's what I'm trying to do. Anyway, I believe that is all the kind of interlude that we need to go through today. Let's crack on. We'll start with the Commonwealth Games, and then we'll move on to, the normal training lists from around the world, followed by, of course, people's lifts. All right. So, now, for those of you who do not know what the Commonwealth Games is, I guess it is to us in the UK kind of like what the Pan Ams is to those of you in the USA. Or maybe that's not the most fair comparison. Maybe Europeans is more similar to us than what Pan Ams is. But I guess that's kind of what it is. It's a collective of various nations. Now, for those of you who do not know what the Commonwealth Games is, or at least kind of how the countries involved are linked in some way, essentially the countries in the Commonwealth Games are all linked through Great Britain. During the British Empire, we controlled a lot of the world, and those countries who at the time were under the rule of the British Empire now all compete at the Commonwealth Games, except, I believe, for Zimbabwe. I don't know why. I'm not a historian, but I have this in the back of my head. Something's telling me that that's what's happened. All right, so let's do this how we usually do this, and work our way up through the weight classes, starting with the 48 kilo women and ending with the super heavyweight men. In the 48 class, Saikom Chanu from India destroyed the field, The reigning world champion from Anaheim outlifted her world championship winning performance by a kilo on each lift, setting Commonwealth records in the snatch, clean and jerk, and total with 86, 110, 196. Ranevasoa from Mauritius took the silver with 170 kilos, and Sri Lanka's Gomez took third with 155 kilos. Notice there that I actually avoided saying the first names of a few of those women for fear of tripping up and ruining this little segment. So where I can, I'm going to do the full names, but occasionally, as I know you guys appreciate, some of these names are a little bit tricky. Again, from India in the 53 kilo class, Kumukchan Chanu, who was the gold medalist in the 48 kilo class in 2014 at the Commonwealth Games, took the gold in the 53 kilo class, lifting slightly less than her smaller teammate, yet still taking the easy 10 kilo win over second place. She snatched 84 kilos and clean and jerked 108 kilos for a 192 kilo total. In silver from Papua New Guinea was Dika Tua, the 2015 gold medalist, with a 182 kilo total, and in third, the sister of the 2014 CrossFit Games champion, lifting 181 kilos, Canada's Rachel LeBlanc-Bazinet. Now, speaking of CrossFit, in the 58s, an amazing session led to the reigning CrossFit Games champion and Olympian, Tia-Clair Toomey, taking the gold medal. Now, down by a kilo in the snatch with 87 kilos behind Canada's Tali Darzingi with 88 kilos, the gold medal would require a big PR from Tia, and of course she'd have to lift 2 kilos more than Darzingi. Despite making 107 kilos as her max in Rio, Tia chose to open at this weight, always 2 kilos above Darzingi, who opened at 105. She then jumped to 111 and finally to 114, the final lift of the session, and she made it in spectacular fashion. A lift that, I suppose for the first time ever, really proved that elite CrossFitters can be incredibly competitive in weightlifting also. And so Tia took first with 201 kilos in the total. Darzingi silver with 200, and in third was Jenny Winnie from the Solomon Islands with a total of 189 kilos. Up to the 63s. Canada again snuck a medal, this time with Maud Charon, who spectacularly went 98, 122, setting a games record in the clean and jerk. Maud Charon was the 2017 Pan Am bronze medalist, for those of you who recognize her name. In silver was the very amazing Zoe Smith representing England. Zoe is the 2014 Commonwealth gold medalist in the 58 kilo class and the holder of several national records. Zoe went 92, 115, a few kilos below her best, which, I think actually as a 53, as a 58, she quite remarkably went 221 kilos in the clean and jerk. So this was a few kilos below her best, but still good enough for second place and the silver medal. In third was Mona Pretorius from South Africa, who totaled just a kilo less than Zoe, with 206 kilos. We had a much closer battle in the women's 69 kilo class, with the totals of the three medalists within 6 kilos from first through to third. But it was, once again, India who took the gold. India really is a rising power in weightlifting at the moment. Poonam Yadav took the gold with 100, 122. And perhaps I'm now going to be a little bit biased, but the English Sarah Davies had a phenomenal performance. After snatching 95 kilos for a 5 kilo competition PR, she made 122 kilos in the clean and jerk, which already as a second attempt was a 1 kilo PR, before taking a huge heroic jump, a 6 kilo jump, to 128 kilos for the win. After a massive clean, she didn't quite have enough left on the jerk, but still, it really was, especially if you kind of know anything about her. I know I'm biased because I am an Englishman, but it was truly inspiring to see her do so well. In third was Apollonia Veve from Fiji, who totaled 216 kilos. Adding to the medals for England was Emily Godley, who won the gold medal in the 75 kilo class, weighing only 70 kilos, so 5 kilos under her other competitors. She went 6 for 6, snatching 96 and clean and jerking 126 to total 222 kilos. In second was Canada's Marie-Eve Beauchemin-Nadeau, who totaled 221 kilos, and in third was the Welsh Laura Hughes with a 207 kilo total. Up to the 90 kilo class now, we started seeing athletes snatching over 100 kilos and clean and jerking over 130 kilos. Topping them all was Fiji's Aileen Kikamatana with a 103 kilo snatch and a 130 kilo clean and jerk. Aileen did then, with the gold locked up on her first attempt clean and jerk, take two attempts heavier at 140 kilos and even 144 kilos, but was unable to land the jerks. In silver was Katie Facina, who, despite winning the snatch with 104 kilos, only managed 128 kilos on the clean and jerk, a kilo off first place in the total. And lastly, in third place, with the longest name of the day, was Cameroon's Clementine Mukudni Numbisi. I am confident that I got that wrong, but it's the effort that counts. And the final session from the women was, of course, the 90 kilo plus class. A bit of drama in this session as Laura Hubbard, previously Laurel Hubbard, was competing. Laura Hubbard spent the first few decades of her life living and training as a man before undergoing the various operations needed to be considered a woman. The issues with this in a sporting context are numerous and lengthy, but of course include the physical and mental benefits that reside after lifting heavier weights for so long. In this competition, the woman who snatched closest to Laura Hubbard made 113 kilos. Laura Hubbard, on the other hand, weighing 26 kilos more than her closest rival, opened at 120 before jumping up to 132 kilos, 19 kilos more than anyone else. In the end, Laura Hubbard unfortunately dislocated her elbow and had to withdraw, and this meant that many hearings and protests were actually probably bypassed, though with many of the women competing against Laura Hubbard publicly protesting her eligibility, this is an issue which will need to be resolved prior to Tokyo 2020. And so, with Laura Hubbard out of the picture, the gold medal went to Samoa's Fagasia Stowers, who, along with her 113 kilo snatch, clean and jerked 140 kilos. In silver was Charisma Tarrant from Nauru, who totaled 243 kilos, winning the clean and jerk portion with 142 kilos. And in bronze was England's Emily Campbell, who totaled just a kilo less than Charisma Tarrant, snatching 103, clean and jerking 139, and totaling a very stellar 242 kilos. Okay, over to the men, where we saw some similarly great performances from a few athletes. Malaysia's 56, Azroy Hazelwafi, dominated. In fact, his snatching was incredible. He made 117 kilos, which, for perspective, is 5 kilos over Dan Barnes' USA record of 112 kilos. However, then I suppose to put that 117 kilo lift into perspective, Azroy's snatch of 117 is still 22 kilos below the world record of 139 kilos. Azroy also clean and jerked 144 kilos for 3 gold medals and 2 games records in the snatch and total. In silver was India's Guru Raja, who totaled 12 kilos less than Azroy with 111, 138, 249, and in the bronze position with another huge snatch of 114 kilos was Sri Lanka's Chaturanga Lakmal, who also clean and jerked 134 kilos to total 248. In the 62 kilo class, we had Pakistan's Tala Talib setting a new Commonwealth Games record with 132 kilos in the snatch. He only clean and jerked over 151 kilos, which was good enough for third place overall. In second place was Papua New Guinea's Maria Baru, who snatched 127 kilos, clean and jerked 159 kilos, and totaled 286, just 2 kilos less than the winner, Mohammed Aznul Bidin, who, despite coming third in the snatch with 126 kilos, managed to win with the big clean and jerk at 162 kilos, 3 kilos more than anyone else, totaling 288 kilos for the win. Over in the 69 kilo class, an athlete who I've spoken to a little bit online, an athlete who I actually went to one of his seminars quite a few years ago and watched him train. So this was great fun for me to see. The winner in the 69 kilo class was Gareth Evans from Wales. He went 5 for 6. He didn't really need his 6th attempt, to be honest, but he opened his snatch at 130, made 133, and made 136 kilos to take joint second in the snatch. He then went pretty big in the clean and jerk. He hit 163 kilos, which totaled him at 299 kilos, 2 kilos above Sri Lanka's Indika Dissanayake, who totaled 297 kilos, and 4 kilos only above India's Deepak Latha. Now, there was a valiant attempt in this competition from the fourth place athlete from Samoa, Vaipava Loana, who snatched 125 kilos and so behind opened at the winning clean and jerk of 167 kilos. Still behind, he made a heroic jump to 175 kilos where he had 2 attempts, was able to clean it but unable to jerk it, a lift that would have actually put him up into first place. Amazing lifting from him. Over in the 77 kilo class, in third place was Australia's Francois Etundi, who snatched 136 kilos, clean and jerked 169 kilos, totaling 305. But above him, 7 kilos up in the total, was England's Jack Oliver, who has really had quite an amazing comeback over the last few years. I think it was probably about 3 years ago he was snatching, 45-ish and clean and jerking in the 70s. He was a really, really terrific lifter, and he underwent a bunch of surgery which took him out for quite a long time. So, I mean, the last few months, or the last year really, has just been him coming back to full health, starting with 5 kilo dumbbells, pressing that overhead, eventually introducing the bar and so on. And that for a while, I considered myself, maybe for a week or two, I realized I had a better total than Jack Oliver, but that did not last for long. He is now back to some real strengths. He snatched 145 kilos on his second, missing 148 on his third, and he clean and jerked 167, missing 171 kilos, which would have given him, for a moment, would have given him the first place position, except that India's Sathish managed to hit 173 kilos on his second, passing on his third because that was good enough to take the win, along with a 144 kilo snatch. So, I mean, only 5 kilos behind first place was Jack Oliver. In the 85 kilo class, once again, and it's kind of amazing that India's done so well, India managed to take the gold medal. Regala Venkat Rahul snatched 151 kilos and clean and jerked 187 kilos, totaling 338, 7 kilos over anyone else, taking the gold. In second place from Samoa was Don Opaloga, who snatched 151 kilos also, but only clean and jerked 180 kilos, 7 kilos shy of Regala. In third place, only 3 kilos behind the silver medalist, was Mohamed Mohdad, who snatched 145 kilos and clean and jerked 183 kilos, taking the bronze medal in the total and in the clean and jerk. Now, the 94 kilo class was highly coveted and for good reason, really. It was the session that I was most excited to watch, and it really did turn out to be quite a spectacular session. Now, before I go on to the podium, I just want to talk about fourth place, because I do have an Englishman there, and I feel it would be awful of me if I did not, at the very least, mention his good lifting. So, Edmund, who last name I've actually never really learnt how to pronounce particularly well. Avetissian, I think he is maybe related to one of the Martyrossians, who knows. But Edmund snatched 150 kilos on his opener, actually ending up jumping up to 157 kilos, which is more than any Englishman has snatched in a long time in the 94 kilo class. He then clean and jerked 184 on his opener, 190 on his second, and unfortunately missed 195 kilos on his third, but giving him a total of 340 kilos, which, I mean, I suppose if we disclude Sonny Webster, is probably the highest total of a 94 kilo lifter in quite a few years for anyone in England. But up in third place from India again was Vikas Thakur, who snatched 159 kilos and clean and jerked 192 kilos, missing 200 kilos twice. But the real story, the two guys who are, I guess, way out ahead, was Canada's Bodhi Santavi and Papua New Guinea's Stephen Carey. Now, the story kind of unfolded that Stephen Carey only made his opener in the snatch at 154 kilos, which was relatively underwhelming in the grand scheme of things. He didn't even take... he did take third in the snatch in that session. Bodhi Santavi, true to his word, as he's been saying this for a while, took the Commonwealth Games record in the snatch on his third attempt, going 3 for 3 160, 161 because of a mess up in the back room, and then 168 kilos for a new record and a new competition best for him. Very good snatching from Bodhi. But in the clean and jerks, Bodhi opened at 196 kilos before taking 201 on his second. He then had opted to load 206 kilos, which would have, I suppose, in many ways put him kind of out of reach. He did end up snatching 14 kilos more than Stephen Carey. So if he'd have made the 206, Stephen Carey would have had to have attempted 221 kilos for the win. But he clocked it, and I don't know why, and a lot of people don't know why, but people are talking about it. But Bodhi ended up clocking the 206 kilos, possibly, I suppose, because he probably thought that he had the competition pretty much locked up at that point. Stephen Carey, however, after making 202 to bag the second position, jumped all the way to 216 kilos, which was a 6-kilo Commonwealth Games record for the win. And he made it, and it was absolutely spectacular. And the joy in his face and the happiness and confidence that lift brought to him was absolutely phenomenal to see. Hopefully that lift is going to be surfacing around Instagram over the coming days. I think it probably has done already. But if you haven't seen that lift, it really is one of the greatest comebacks ever. I mean, the phrase, snatch for show, jerk for dough has never been more meaningful than at this point. With a 154 snatch, good enough for third. He then took a huge jump, clean and jerking 15 kilos more than anyone else. And if we take Bodhi out of the situation, it's 24 kilos more than anyone else, taking the gold medal overall in the total. It was an exceptionally close finish in the 105 kilo class between second, third, and fourth place finishers. Fourth place had a 350 total, and second place had a 352 total. But fortunately, Owen Boxall had just enough at 351 to bag the third medal, the bronze medal, with his performance, snatching 152 kilos, having missed his first two, and then going 3 for 3 in the clean and jerk, making 199 kilos, good enough for the bronze. In silver, again from India, was Pardeep Singh, who snatched 152 kilos and clean and jerk 200 kilos. Also worth mentioning at this point is that there were 3 athletes who snatched 152 kilos, and then they went 198, 199, and 200 in the clean and jerk. But it was topping the table from Samoa, Saneli Mao, who took the gold with a 154 kilo snatch and a 206 kilo clean and jerk, good enough for a 360 kilo total. Now, in the super heavyweight class, no guys really pushing kind of the world standard. No one even snatching over 180 kilos, but still 4 guys snatching over 170 kilos. So we had in third place from Pakistan, Mohammed Butt, who snatched 173 kilos and clean and jerk 222 kilos to total 395. In second place from Samoa was Lauititi Lui, who snatched 175 kilos for the gold in the snatch, clean and jerking 225 kilos on his second, and missing 228 kilos on his third, totaling the wonderful number of 400 kilos. But 3 kilos up, setting a new Commonwealth record in the total of 403 kilos, was New Zealand's David Litty. He snatched 174 kilos on his third attempt, before clean and jerking 220 on his opener, missing 227, and needing that 229 to take the win, which he got, giving him the 403 kilo Commonwealth Games record and the gold medal. And now, finally, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, we can move on from the Commonwealth Games and talk about the training lifts, which is actually substantially my favourite part of this of the weekly news show. I find that the reporting of the competitions, unless it's a World Championships or if it's the Olympics, it's generally often a little bit tiresome to collate all of the results and report them. So I'm very pleased that we're finally through that and ready to talk about just the big lifts that are happening in garages and basements, in training halls and training camps all around the world, from everyone from all different nations. And no better place to start, I suppose, than the garage in America, the home of Evan Rutledge. Garth Brooks is who I'm talking about there, of course, who is just always stronger than you think he is. He is always one step ahead of what you think he's going to be able to do. He hit a damn strong strict press at 125 kilos, followed by one at 137 kilos, aka 300 pounds. Not a bad push press, 300 pounds, let alone a strict press. Evan Rutledge also front squatted 270 kilos, and whilst it looked like, he probably only just had the one in the tank, I'm sure he had another 5 kilos at least in there. A 137 kilo press and a 270 kilo front squat are not bad when you only weigh 108 kilos. Next, a pretty crazy moment came from Aishiro Murakami, the Japanese super that I've been mentioning pretty regularly for these last few weeks. He did something that I don't think I've ever seen before. He missed a muscle snatch behind. I've seen people, and I have missed snatches behind. I've missed many snatches behind, but never a muscle snatch behind. With 130 kilos, he leant back so much that he was almost horizontal with his body, and as he tried to effectively bench press the weight up, the weight starts drifting towards his face, and so he had to bail the bar behind. Interestingly, I was thinking about this in comparison with Wes Kitts, who, squats a lot less than Aishiro Murakami, although he's able to muscle snatch 130 kilos a lot easier than Aishiro is able to do it. But Aishiro out-squats and out-snatches Wes. It's a little bit of a weird thing going on there. I think it's just the incredible amount of upper body strength that Wes Kitts probably has. More from Aishiro Murakami this week as he hit some good mornings at 200 kilos. A massively quad and leg dominant weightlifter. It really is quite amazing to see him hit such heavy good mornings, which of course, as most of you know, is predominantly a back or at least posterior exercise. I think that behind Lovchev, who I've seen doing good mornings with 220 kilos, and maybe even 240 kilos, these are the heaviest I've ever seen on camera. That is, of course, only counting the most legit of the good mornings, not ones where people lean forward 10 degrees. Also, despite being a lifter who can rep out 300 kilos on the back squat like it's absolutely nothing, Aishiro Murakami hit a PR deadlift, and it was a struggle at 300 kilos. It really is amazing what proportions and leverage can do to you, and you can really see that when you look at someone who kind of lives in one of the extremes. Incredibly long torso, incredibly short femurs. Aishiro Murakami is kind of that leverage or body proportion that a lot of weightlifters wish that they were. One of my favourite young lifters who is really pushing to become one of the best in the world is Faris Ibrahim from Qatar. Faris took silver in the clean and jerk at Worlds in 2017 behind Surab Maradi, who of course then went on to set a world record on the clean and jerk in total. But Faris has always lacked, to some extent, his snatch. Despite clean and jerking 220 kilos at Worlds, he only snatched 163, which is relatively low compared to that clean and jerk. In training, however, last week, he just hit 170 kilos, which is a PR for him, I believe. Still only 19 years old. He really isn't a bad lifter at all. Next, a colossal save from the Egyptian super and self-proclaimed Hulk weightlifter, Abdul Rahman, who cleaned 240 kilos off the blocks. But, that's not it. In the bottom position, both arms popped out completely. They straightened out in front of him, in fact. He was kind of doing one of those zombie front squats. But it didn't bother him at all. He simply paused and then stood up without holding the bar at all. He then redid the lift, making it look incredibly comfortable. Last week, Abdul Rahman also hit a power clean plus a stunningly easy push jerk, i.e. a no foot movement jerk, at 210 kilos. Next, James Moser. Now, where do we start with James? It was whilst I was at the last Penley camp in January that James snapped his arm, and already he is back to power snatching 120 kilos like a twig. He also hit many strength PRs, squatting 240 kilos for 5 and 280 kilos for a double on the deadlift. Now, moving on to Iran, to one of the best lifters in the world, and really one of the best lifters of almost all time, to be honest. Kianush Rustami is amazing. He snatched in training this week another easy-looking 175 kilos, the most we have seen from him in a while, and more than he actually managed in Anaheim at Worlds in 2017. Rustami is one of the top 50 weightlifters ever, and is one of the few living weightlifters to crack the top 50 performances ever. In fact, I don't mean the few living weightlifters, I mean one of the few competing weightlifters to crack the top 50. Without making this too much of an advertisement for my Friday show, The Sinclair Countdown, if you do want to know a little bit more about Rostami's career and life, I go into detail about him and his performance in his career on the show that I did last Friday. His performance at Rio of a 179 kilo snatch and 217 kilo clean and jerk is one really to be proud of to have seen, and one certainly never to forget. Also, in true Rostami fashion from this last week, he did some more outdoor lifting. This time, not in the desert or the snowy mountains, but in his backyard. He hit a very easy 200 kilos in the clean and jerk. No pause in the bottom of the clean, which is really quite a rarity for him. CJ Cummings was back at it again with the 5 triples, which he did. I mean, he's been doing 5 triples now for a few weeks. This week with 128 kilos, which is 90% of his American record 143. If Glenn made me do 5 triples at 90%, I would call him crazy, but CJ actually makes him look pretty flawless. Not bad for a 17-year-old 69. Now, let's stick with CJ just really quickly. He had a brutal squat session. Or I suppose at least on paper what looked like a brutal squat session. 7 sets of 5 at 200 kilos, and yet somehow CJ flew through them. Such incredibly strong legs. Kate Vibert has really been on form in her snatch this last week. Not only did she hang snatch 91 kilos, aka 200 pounds, for a triple, she snatched 100 kilos again, which as far as I can remember is either the 3rd or 4th time she's ever hit 100 kilos. Equal actually to the 63 kilo American record that she was after for quite a while. Now as a 69 kilo lifter, she has 6 more kilos to go before she hits Matty Rogers' record of 106 kilos. But with the new weight classes coming, I imagine that if there is a weight class in between the current 69 and 75 kilo class, or at least a new weight class that probably at around 67 or 70 kilos, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kate Vibert drop down and Matty Rogers move up. The current 105 kilo snatch world record holder and 2008 Olympic champion is back, of course, training. Andre Romnau managed 170 kilos on the block snatch for a double, now excitingly, I suppose, repping 85% of his world record. He also hit a clean plus front squat plus jerk at 200 kilos, some 36 kilos off his best ever clean and jerk, an old world record. Slowly but surely, Alex Lee, the ex-American record holder in the snatch in the 69 kilo class at 140 kilos, is making his way back to the top, or at least certainly near the top. He still isn't near CJ yet, and is going to have to do better than he ever has done, actually, if he wants to contend with CJ, but he is definitely looking very good. In fact, this last week he made a 160 kilo clean and jerk in training, I believe only 15 kilos off of his all-time competition best and previous American record of 175 kilos. Of course, this was before CJ bumped it up another 10 kilos to 185 kilos. The 6-time best lifter in Cameroon, the 77 kilo lifter Jean-Baptiste Yanou Ketchanki, is an absolute legend. He doesn't give a damn about his situation. He may not have a platform to train on, or even a platform that's flat to train on, or even a roof over his head, but he just gets it done. He clean and jerked an amazing looking 190 kilos on his road to hitting 200 kilos. Make sure you guys follow him and show him some support. Just search Jean-Baptiste and I'm sure you'll get him. Upon failing that, just search who I follow on the Weightlifting House page and I'm sure you'll find him without too much trouble. Marissa Klingslees again went very heavy and again makes a feature on the show. After weeks of triples in the clean and jerk, Marissa hit a spectacular 135 kilos, which I believe is a PR for her, as a 90 kilo lifter. She also smashed a 147 kilo triple on the front squat, which certainly was motivation for me as I attempted a 150 kilo front squat triple yesterday and ended up failing the 3rd attempt. So as it stands, Marissa does have a better triple on the front squat than I do. I can't let that be. So give me a couple weeks and I'm going to hit that 150 and I'm going to get that 3rd rep finally. Courtney Batchelor, the American record holder in the snatch for the 53s at 87 kilos, is back training after quite the hiatus. She already looks pretty unbelievable actually after such a short time coming back. She competed at a local competition last week where she snatched 79 kilos, narrowly missing her third attempt at 82 kilos, before smashing 101 kilos in the clean and jerk. It certainly won't be long, I'm sure, until she is back challenging athletes like Caitlin Hogan. In fact, I think it's Courtney Batchelor who, as a 53 kilo lifter, back squatted, I want to say it was either 150 kilos for more than one rep or about 155 kilos for one, but she has amazingly strong legs. One of my favourite lifters and the current bronze medalist from Rio in the 85 kilo class, Denis Ulanov from Kazakhstan. At Rio, he went 175, 215, which actually at the time only put him in fourth until some crane was popped and he moved up to bronze. This 390 kilo total would have been enough to win in many, many years past, but anyway, this last week, Ulanov smashed 172 kilos in the snatch and a 210 kilo clean and jerk. A phenomenal athlete, a follow on Instagram that you certainly will not regret. Matti Sassa, similarly an amazing athlete. The previous Oceanic weightlifter, record holder, and Olympian now lists for the USA. The 58 kilo lifter, who I believe might soon be the number one lifter in the USA, at least by percentage of world record, that is, just hit an 85 kilo power snatch plus snatch like it was just nothing. Definitely one to watch, or in my case, I suppose, to keep watching. Next, probably the most impressive lift to feature on the show this week came from Simon Martirosyan, the European champion and Olympic silver medalist in the 105s. Simon hit a hang snatch 3 days ago of 205 kilos, 5 kilos over Oromnau's world record. In the build-up to this, he attempted a 190 kilo double, narrowly missing the second rep before making 200 and then 205 kilos. Just an absolutely stunning lift, a truly remarkable lift from him. Another lift that he did, or maybe a better named, I suppose, a circus lift that Martirosyan did last week, was a 150 kilo close grip snatch gone wrong. Or maybe gone right, I can't really tell. Simon Martirosyan misses the close grip snatch, and as the bar drops, he proceeds to catch it in the rack whilst in a deep squat. He stands it up, and then, of course, he just push presses it overhead like an empty bar. Spencer Moorman, aka Moorman the New, is still a strong man. He hit a PR triple in the back squat at 276 kilos. I suppose when you've been competing or training for as long as he has, I think he started training when he was like 11 years old, to be hitting PRs in the strength lift still is very exciting for him. I'm still working at getting him on the show. Perhaps one day all the badgering and all the messages will pay off and we'll get him on. Spence, I know you listen to this show, so the people want you, man. you got to come on and talk to us. Moving on, we have Ilya Ilyin, who is slowly but surely moving on up through the numbers. This week, adding another 5 kilos to a snatch at 155 kilos. There is no word of his clean and jerks. And whilst I talk about actually Ilya, if there was anyone listening who speaks Russian who can help me out with some translation work, then please let me know. Someone messaged me about a week ago, and they had Russia in their name. You'll know who you are if you're listening. And I completely cannot find you anymore. And I know you offered to help me do the translation. And if you could just reveal yourself again, that would be fantastic. But I basically need someone who's going to help me do this interview with Ilya. So, I can't offer you any money for your help, but you will be able to read messages directly from Ilya, I suppose, which is pretty cool, and be the first person before me to actually find out what he says to the questions that I ask him. 77 kilo Japanese Taki Kasai posted a block clean and jerk series, starting at 160 kilos, slowly working up to 190 kilos. This is just under 90% of the world record, 214, held by Nijat Rahimov. And so that 190 kilos really is a pretty good lift. Brian Racenow, the USA 56, has hit some really big lifts this last week. Not only is he back squatting 170 kilos, which is a kilo shy of triple body weight for a set of 8, he also hit 160 kilos for 10 and a huge 112 kilo snatch from blocks, equaling Darren Barnes' American record, albeit with straps and probably weighing heavy, but still an amazing week for Brian. And I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, I think it's only a matter of time before Brian takes down some American records. Now, moving on to the final segment of the Weightlifting House news show, the People's Lifts. Now, what I've done this week, I've been going a little bit overboard with this. I've been handing these out willy nilly. These incredible honors of being on the Weightlifting news show. So what I've done is, instead of talking about 10 people, I've cut it down back to the original 5 that I said I would start at. So if you make it onto these 5, that actually is a little bit more of an impressive thing to do, or at least, I mean, I'm not sure if it's particularly impressive, but you've got to impress me. That's all you've really got to do with these lifts. Of course, like I say before, if you want to be on this part of the show, on the People's Lifts, just use the hashtag weightliftinghouse, and I'll find you. And if I think you're good enough, I'll put you on the show. So to kick things off, we have Chris Palzer, who hit a 160 kilo clean jerk down at Oxford Power, the self-proclaimed Soviet dungeon, which I think is a pretty cool name. I've been meaning to go over to Oxford Power for a long time now to train. They've got a lot of guys who, they've got quite a few guys who outlift me. Maybe that's one of the reasons I've not been. I don't think it is, but maybe subliminally that's what's been keeping me from heading over to Oxford Power. But anyway, Chris, amazing lifting. 160 kilos for a clean jerk is something that I can't wait to be doing. It's not going to happen now, it's not going to happen soon, but it is going to happen at some point. And when it does, I'll be sure to tag you in the video. If you want to follow Chris and see this 160 kilo clean jerk, you can follow him at Ceepspt. That's CEEPSPT on Instagram. Next, we have Dean Skitchitano. I wrote this down and I never rehearsed pronouncing the name, so I'm really sorry for that. But Dean Skitchitano, a 17-year-old. This is crazy. He's 17, he's 94 kilo lifter, and he hit a pause back squat for 3 seconds at 190 kilos. He said that his goal is, before he turns 18, which I can only assume is happening soon, he's going to back squat 200. Whether he means with a pause or not, I don't know. But, considering he did 190 for a 3-second pause, you'd assume he'd already be well over 200. So I can only imagine that he's meaning 200 with a pause, which at 17 years of age is just truly phenomenal. You can follow him at Dean SCI94. I guess SCI is kind of like, I guess it's the first 3 letters of his second name. I was going to say it's kind of like sci-fi, but I've clearly gotten that wrong. It's clearly for the first 3 letters of his second name. So follow Dean at Dean SCI94 to see some incredible lifts. Next we have, I guess he's kind of like a friend now. He's always posting videos, he's always tagging me in them, he's always repping the Weightlifting House t-shirt. I love watching his videos. We have Sammy Christopherson, who hit a PR jerk at 168 kilos, which, is huge in itself, but he did it during a 3-second eccentric drill. So, what he was doing was dipping, but the dip had to take 3 seconds. There are a few reasons why we do this. One of them is just to acclimate more time in the correct positions. Another reason is because it helps you find the balance of where you need to be on your foot. You don't want to be too far back on your heels, you don't want to be on your toes. You want to be on the midfoot when you do the jerk. Please don't let people tell you want to be as far back on your heels as possible. It isn't true. But he was doing this and he was working up well, and before he knew it, he was up to a PR weight. And so, maybe not with a full 3 seconds in the dip, but he definitely dips very slowly and then proceeds to make a PR in the jerk. 168 kilos. You can follow Sammy at SammyChristo105kg. Next, we have Thedeepkneebend, which is just one of the best Instagram names ever. Thedeepkneebend. I don't know his full name, so I'm gonna refer to him as Kneebend. I'm not even sure I know what's on the bar in this video. I just really love the attitude that he lifts with. I think it's 125 kilos, and he does 3 floating clean deadlifts plus a floating clean plus a power jerk. So he pulls it, he then does 3 floating clean deadlifts, cleans it, power jerks it. It just really got me feeling pretty pumped up, just seeing the aggression and generally how pissed off he seemed with how easy it was. It really gets me going. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that, but I've had that before, where you lift a weight that you think is going to be heavy because it's always been heavy, and it's so easy that it pisses you off. You feel angry, you feel aggressive at the fact that it was so easy and that you're going to go up. And he really showed a lot of that. So follow him just for the attitude at Thedeepkneebend on Instagram. And finally, to make this guy's day, so he I was going through all the hashtags to find, some of my favorite lifts, and I saw one from this guy, the_goose step, and I gave it a like, and I was planning on putting it on the news show, and I was writing it up and making sure I knew, just the details about the lift so that I could talk about it on the show now. And I flicked back on Instagram, and I had a message from him saying, thanks for the like, it made my day, or something like that. So I haven't messaged him back yet to say, but he's also featured on the news show. So if giving him a like made his day, I don't know what the heck's going to happen when he finds out he was on the news show, but hopefully he'll be pretty pleased. So the_goose step, he competed the other day, and the lifts were a lot of fun to watch. It's amazing it really is amazing as a spectator how much you can get engrossed in someone else's meat just by watching them lift on Instagram. The goose step, whose name I do not know, went 3 for 3 in the snatch with 117 kilos and made 145 kilos in the clean and jerk, taking the gold overall. He has a staggeringly good pull in the snatch, and actually is able to get under the bar and the jerk phenomenally well. Those are look to me like his two best attributes. He pulls the bar very high in the snatch, and he's amazing at getting under the bar in the jerk, which, I suppose are two of the hardest things really to learn in weightlifting. Anyway, guys, those are my 5 picks of the week of the people's lifts, the best lifts that I've seen from all of you on Instagram over the last week. And there we have it. I think that is absolutely everything for the news show this week. I know it's been a long couple of weeks with Europeans and then with the Commonwealth Games, but I think we can get back to the normal schedule next week of just the biggest, baddest training lifts from around the world. Now, I don't want to spam you too much with this, but I have to mention it because this is, in many ways, one of the biggest things I've ever done in my life. I have started a barbell business. I've got these bars being made, the house barbell, 5 needle bearing, 210,000 PSI, just some of the best bars you're ever going to find, and I'm doing what others have not done, which is trying to make a phenomenal weightlifting bar affordable. I think, as one of the guys from Friends of Online was saying, a lot of time these new barbell companies immediately price their bars at the same prices as brands who have built up a brand name, Eleiko or Rogue, without realizing that they're able to price their bars at that much because of the brand name. But they don't need to be that high. They don't need to be that pricey. And if you do want the name of Eleiko, I'm absolutely fine for people to go out and buy those bars. But for those of you who are like me, or certainly how I've been for many years now, who can't afford something like a $1,000 barbell from Eleiko, I am bringing the highest quality of bar back to the people. So if you want to pick up a house barbell, I'll have a pre-order link in the next few days once I've got pictures that are good enough, and you'll be able to get 10% off your first off the bars. So they're going to be, in the US, that will be $445, and in the UK, that's going to be £315. In euros, I don't know what that is, but I'm guessing it's probably around 360 euros, something like that. So if you want a bar, stay tuned. You'll probably be able to see on my Instagram when I've finally got them up for pre-order. And if you fancy one, well, it would make my day. It would make me a very happy man. So thanks once again, guys, for tuning in. Thanks once again for listening to me ramble about the barbell. And I'll speak to you all on Friday.